Hi guys and girls, I'm Obsidian Ant and I want to have a look at the updated information we now have for patch 1.5, which so far is called ships. We knew that we were going to get 7 new ships at some point in patch 1.5 and Horizons update, and we now know the name of those 7 ships. This was confirmed in an answers from the dev series as posted to the Frontier forums last week. So as I mentioned in a video earlier this week, the names of these ships are the Imperial Short Range Fighter, which is going to be CQC only, the Lakon Keelback, the Viper Mark IV, the Asp Scout, the Federal Corvette, the Imperial Cutter, and of course the Cobra Mark IV. So let's go into a bit more detail. I only briefly covered this in the 3301 video from Monday, and now we can have a look at more detail of these particular ships. So let's start with the Imperial Short Range Fighter. This is going to be available only in CQC, and we already have this ship actually in the game. You see this in some of the combat zones and conflict zones from the Empire's side. It's a very small ship, very similar to the Condor that the Federation currently have. Now it has no jump drive, and as I say, it's only going to be available in CQC. However, we do know that the Condor will be available in the main game and launchable from the larger ships such as the Anaconda. This is going to happen later on down the line. We don't know quite when this is going to come, but we know that fighters are going to be deployable at some point. So it makes a lot of sense that the Imperial Fighter is also going to be in the main game along with the Condor. In CQC, the Condor is generally able to hold its own against the Sidewinder and the Eagle. However, much of this is due to the ship's manoeuvrability. Again, we can likely suspect that the Imperial Fighter will be much the same. It's going to be interesting to see how powerful this ship actually is within the main game, if it actually ever ends up there. And I'm also curious to find out how many of these ships an Anaconda will be able to carry. Just think, when you're out in your Imperial fighter ship or your Condor and it gets destroyed, we don't know yet what happens to the player, but if it's anything at all like what happens when you're in your SRV on the planet, if you get blown up, you will then spawn back inside your ship. If you're able to carry multiple ships, perhaps you'll be able to then deploy another fighter. You may only be limited to 1 ship per Anaconda, or perhaps the limit you can carry will be dependent on your ship's cargo size. That, I think, is going to be quite interesting to find out. And next up is the Lakon Keelback. Now, there's no information available about this, and it's actually the first time that we've ever heard this name be mentioned. Is it going to be a general purpose ship or a trade ship? Maybe it's going to be something else entirely. Lakon, of course, are the manufacturers of the Lakon Type 6, the Type 7 as well as the T9, and all these, of course, are trade ships. It's possible then that the Keelback is also going to be a trade ship, although that doesn't really fit in with the naming convention that's already been established so far within the game. Some people suspect that the Keelback could possibly be an alternative name for the Panther Clipper. Personally though, I don't think that is going to be very likely. And to top that off, it was a question that was actually asked on the Frontier forums last week. Someone questioned whether the Panther Clipper is going to make an appearance, and the community manager actually said it's not going to be in patch 1.5, but maybe, perhaps, could be further down the line. And that was said in such a way as to not confirm really one way or the other, but to let us know that it's still on the table. One other point of interest or curiosity is the name of the Keelback itself. As with many other ships in the game, it's named after a snake. Now, what's interesting about this particular snake is that it is a freshwater snake. It lives in and around water. Now, could that possibly have any relevance to the far future of this ship? A worthy question, perhaps. Moving on to the Viper Mark IV, again there's very few details about this ship, but we have of course seen a couple of images on it, so we know what it looks like, and it has a very similar appearance of course to the current Viper. Now it's likely to improve on the Viper Mark III in a number of ways, while still allowing the Mark III Viper to have its own benefits and superior aspects. So we know that the ship the Mark IV does have lower manoeuvrability and speed, but this is traded off to allow it to have better internals. It's also been confirmed that the Viper Mark IV has the same hardpoint layout, although of course that still leaves the question open as to the hardpoint size for this ship. Nothing about that has actually been revealed so far. It may of course just end up being the same hardpoint sizes, but we'll have to wait and see on that one, I guess. Now, the Viper is my favourite small fighter, so I'm very keen to try out this ship and see what it's all about. Right then, the Asp Scout. Any of you that have watched a few of my videos will of course know that the Asp is one of the ships I fly the most. I'm an avid explorer and have spent a long time out in the depths of space, and I do this in my Asp. I feel that the Asp Scout is very much likely to share a lot of similarities with the Diamondback Scout, in the same sense that there's a difference between the Diamondback Scout and the Diamondback Explorer. They are, to all intents and purposes, very similar ships, but of course the Diamondback Explorer is an excellent exploration vessel and is easily capable of more or less matching the Asp in terms of its jump distance. So with this in mind, it's quite possible that the Asp Scout will also follow the Diamondback Scout. In my mind at least, it's highly likely that the Asp Scout will have better manoeuvrability and be faster than the regular Asp. Now, I've said before that the Asp actually makes a fairly decent combat ship. It's pretty manoeuvrable, it flies very much like a Cobra in a lot of ways, and has quite a lot of hardpoints. So a ship that actually builds upon that and focuses it more towards frontline combat or rapid combat, well, for that I think the Asp would make a good ship indeed. Do let me know what your thoughts are on that, and I'd love to hear your opinions about it. Okay, so moving on again, we're looking at the Federal Corvette. Now, this is the ship that I'm most excited to see, and whilst it's unlikely that I will be able to afford this ship, and it will probably have a high rank, and well, I tend not to rank up very much, so it's probably a ship I'm not going to own for a very long time, but it's still a ship I want to see within the game. Interestingly enough, we do know a lot of the specs for this ship. It's going to carry 2 huge hardpoints, and that means it's going to be the first ship that's going to be able to actually do that. It's also going to have 8 utility mounts, 2 small hardpoints, 2 medium hardpoints, as well as 1 large hardpoint. So it's going to be pretty much quite a powerhouse in terms of being a fighter ship, a combat ship. The other big question, of course, on a lot of players' minds is the size of this ship. Now, there is a statement out there saying that it will be the largest player-owned federal ship. So, really, that's a clear enough statement, isn't it? However, there's a lot of people out there feeling that the ship is possibly going to be larger than the Anaconda, with some suggestions saying it's going to be up to 1/3 bigger. Now, I'm really not sure about that either way, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I agree with the idea that it's probably going to be larger than the Anaconda, and I created this mock-up image here. It fits in with the idea of being 1/3 longer, and what I did here is match the sizes of some of the utility mounts as well as the hardpoint mounts on the Anaconda with the images that have so far been released for the Federal Corvette. And to all intents and purposes, as far as I can see, these 2 images are now to scale with each other. But of course, I may be completely wrong with that, but that's the bet I'm willing to put down on it. Now, this actually ties into my regret from EGX, which is that I didn't ask Michael Brooks or Sandro Samarco about the sizes of these 2 ships. I actually went down with the idea in mind that I was going to ask them which of the 2 ships is larger. Maybe we would have got confirmation, but perhaps knowing those 2 guys, we would have got an evasive answer anyway. Who knows? But time will tell. The Imperial Cutter then is essentially a counterpart to the Federal Corvette. Clearly it's going to be a combat orientated ship, and a large one at that. Again, we don't know how large, but if the Federal Corvette is the largest player owned Federation ship, it seems quite possible that the Imperial Cutter would also be the largest player owned Empire ship. But yep, we're out on a limb there yet again, making guesses and wild assumptions, but I think it's quite a reasonable one. We haven't got any stats at all on this ship, but we do have some concept art here. Seeing the price and rank of these two ships is going to be almost as interesting as seeing their full reveal and specs. And last up we have the Cobra Mark IV. Now this was one of the earliest announced ships. It's actually only going to be available to players who own both Elite Dangerous and Elite Dangerous Horizons. We don't know the entire specs for this ship again, but it looks a bit beefier than the regular Cobra Mark III. We do know of course that it's got better hardpoint placement as well as an additional hardpoint, so it should make it a very decent ship to fly. And really, I've got to admit, to top that off, the Cobra Mark III is actually my favourite ship in the entire game, so getting another version of this ship is actually going to be pretty special, and I'm really looking forward to getting out there and trying it out. Well, that is what we know so far for ships 1.5 and Horizons. Again, we've still got quite a lot of speculation there, but as we get closer, we're getting more details confirmed. If you've got any thoughts and feelings about the specs for these ships and about any of the other ships that are currently missing, do let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys and girls next time. I wanted to take a closer look at the Planetary Reveal trailer that David Braben showed to us all on Friday. It seems there's quite a lot of stuff going on here, so let's get right back there and take a look. The detail in this entire scene is actually phenomenal, and I wanted to start with a look at the SRV. There's two things here then. One gives us an idea of the attention to detail, and the other one gives us an idea of the sense of scale.